Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all the news of Star Citizen from the week just past. I am your host Mac, so let's get on with it. This week we get the latest on Squadron 42's progress, lots of information for the upcoming scanning and ping mechanic, plus 3.2 heads into early PTU. So I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my patrons. Your monthly support really helps me get videos like Star Citizen Sunday out. Thank you so much. If you are interested in supporting me and my channel more directly, be sure to follow the link to my Patreon page to learn more. So let's get straight into calling all devs. The first question is, there are no floating name tags above heads. How will people tell other players apart? Now they said they got turned off due to the planets rotating. Basically, as the player walks around, the name tags would either stay where they are or rotate with the planet. It is on the backlog to fix. They want to find a balance between knowing you're a player and not knowing you're a player. Names will be targets, obviously, so if you know it's a real player, you may spend more time trolling them or tracking them or whatever. They want it to be a little less obvious if you are a player or not. Personally, I just don't want name tags. I see more gameplay with not having name tags above head, specifically in the bounty hunting career, being able to blend in with NPCs. This is something I think will need to be fine-tuned over the time, maybe having something to do with helmets. Obviously, if you're not wearing a helmet, I don't think there should be any UI at all, but maybe you could have some form of input on your helmet that allows you to see friends, your groups, or even just maybe a mechanic of scanning players to see if what their name is and whether that will determine whether you know they're real or not. Those sort of things. I don't think it should just be straight so obvious, and I don't think that was the intention anyway, so fingers crossed that won't be a thing. Anyway, next question is, will we be able to adjust the brightness and gamma and all these different functions of the UI? Now, Todd Pappy says yes, they want to redo the front end and have a proper gamma calibration. They're still in tech talks about how to fix all this, but it is definitely on the roadmap and it will be done. Next question, is there an ETA for Caterpillar modules and overall ship modularity? Now, obviously there's no ETA, there never is, unfortunately, but there is a plan for them. It's on the backlog, but it's not a priority. They still plan for modularity and things like deployment bays, habitation, medic bays, and so forth for the Caterpillar. They are still coming. This modularity will affect many different ships like the Retaliator, the Karak, the Endeavour, plus others. It will be like swapping out cartridges, but it's not as simple as that, as everything needs to be hooked up within the ships, like the piping system, the lighting system, everything really. Plus, it's a different zone within a ship, so they need to make sure it all connects properly. So, next question, will we be able to get out of our cockpits and walk around while in quantum travel? And yes, that is still the plan to allow that. Obviously, jumps between planets can take 8 minutes, we've seen between Arcor and Hurston. You will have the ability to get up and do other things like mess with your cargo or fix something on your ship. But then if your ship starts heading into a trap or pulled out of quantum travel or is on a collision course with an asteroid, you will need to be notified and warned so you can run back to your cockpit and ensure it doesn't happen. There should be, they've said, a wealth of things to do on board, so yeah, you won't just be sat in the chair bored to crap. Final question for calling all devs. So many ships come used with wear and tear. Why is this, and will we ever be able to clean them? Now they say that they come with wear and tear to make them feel lived in and used and feel a little more real. All the materials have a slider which can be changed or can change the wear and tear. So this is for ships, weapons, clothing, anything really. And in the future, as your ship gets more used, the slider will increase the amount of wear and tear, and then as you clean them, it will reduce it again. We don't know in what way you can clean them, just repairing them maybe. I don't know if you're going to be able to stand there and mop and actually make a difference. But ships like the Caterpillar, the Reclaimer, won't ever be completely clean due to its style. But other ships like the Razor and the M50, it would make more sense to be able to have them super clean. Anyway, that was calling all devs, guys. Let's move on. So around the first this week was the Squadron 42 update. It also included scanning and a look at the Eclipse. Kicking it off with the Squadron 42 update. The weapon system has received an overhaul. Right now the focus is on recoil for FPS weapons. Weapon feel is very important, and Squadron 42 features a lot of on-foot shooting. Basically, the new system defines a base recoil for each weapon, then it's affected by the player depending upon their position, their state, and other stats. Ship AI is coming along as well. Focus is on smoothing out the ship takeoff and landing of the Idris. They've made progress on how the AI prioritise targets based on threat level, chance and character personal bias, during flight. Ship AI teams also iterating on fighter and gunship behaviours, plus a lot of back-end improvements to help improve the overall ship combat experience. They're working on the Odin system as well, they're spacescaping for this, developing the space scene, which they call the overworld, building this gas cloud tech, which is used throughout the whole of Squadron 42's campaign, including the coil for nebula and other pockets of interesting areas of space. It also helps with narrative and variety. They want to make the space scenes look amazing and convey a message to the player, kind of balance it between plausibility, reality, and visuals. Once they have all this working in Squadron 42, they'll then apply that to Star Citizen's Citizen universe as well. The prop team continues to turn out control room sets for Chemline. They wanted to create an abandoned vibe, so they've done a damage pass creating damaged variants of each asset. Work has started on what I think they said was a scrap house on an upcoming location. They're just building out the texture sets and geometry, but they can't say anymore. If you do know what they said, it sounds like scrap house, but I can't really tell. Anyway, the visual targets are being built up on the Chemline as well, plus other Squadron 42 locations. They do look very cool wherever they may be. Ship emergency and distress states are being iterated on and polished. It's going to be separate to the full destroyed versions we've seen of the Idris crashed on a planet. The planet versions were only static builds, whereas I'm hoping this means that as the ship gets closer to exploding, we get to see it in a real semi-derelict state. Not too sure though, my fingers are crossed there though. Work continues on the Bengal carrier as well, getting new locations built out in near final states. We've seen the brig, where you've got 1 to 24 prisons, which is a lot of holding cells there. The animation team is getting variants in the NPC combat sets. This is really cool. So alongside the trained mercenary sets, they're developing the visual language for the untrained NPCs. If they are trained, they'll be confident in their actions, decisive, and a lot more difficult to take down. The untrained NPCs will be more skittish and have more wild actions. It also applies to how they react to cover, so trained NPCs will switch hands for the weapons when in cover, whereas non-trained will just expose themselves more. Stances too will vary depending on the level of training. I do love how this could play out when it comes to the PU and we're hiring NPCs, and each one having a varied ability. So if you hire a lesser person, they're more gonna, they're not gonna be as effective, and seeing that visually is gonna be so cool. Anyway, finally, the character art team is creating additional hero costumes, like the outfit for Graves here, which is played by John Rhys Davies. This jacket is from his old days in the 118th Squadron, and the shirt and boots just sort of shows he's a professional manager of security on a rugged mining base. I believe he plays the security manager of the Shuban outpost. Anyway, moving on to scanning. Now they're making improvements to the radar, which includes ping and scanning. Ping is where you find elements of interest like ships, derelict ships, and mineable rocks and so forth. And then scanning is allowing you to determine the information for each of these items. You can currently see targets within a passive radar range, but they want to allow us to gather more info from targets outside of this range, which is why they've introduced this ping mechanic. It basically sends out a wave which has a greater range than the passive radar and returns the signals of values of these items within that range. As you begin to fly closer to them, you hold the button down and start collecting more information on that target. So if it's a ship, you can figure out the owner, the ship itself, the health, the status, even the faction they belong to. They do want to expand this after the first tier, maybe being able to scan the crew manifest and the crew's health, the cargo they're carrying, even sub-items, just to help you build a manifest that you could either use for yourself, store for later, or use and sell using the info running mechanic. You will light up when you use this ping feature, so it's pretty dangerous, kind of reveals your location. It's also very good for stealth gameplay, they say, so if you throttle all your energy and power usage down, you could slip under people's passive radars. But obviously this is quite dangerous, as you're ultimately reducing your effectiveness of your weapon shields and power plants and whatever you've reduced. So if someone does send out a ping and finds you, then you're vulnerable. But on the other hand, you'll notice they've pinged, and it will allow you to figure out what to do next. So it's all balancing the gameplay. Now if you actively scan a ship, it could be seen as a threat, and the crew being scanned will get alerted and obviously ask questions about this. But it also sounds like you'll sort of tell what the person is scanning on board your ship. So if they start scanning your cargo, it's quite likely that they're up to something a little suspicious. Now when it comes to mining, Scanning also applies to mining. Right now the radar only finds mineable rocks. They have added some non-mineable rocks artificially to create a bit more challenging gameplay, but only at long distances. When you get within range of the rocks, you can then establish what minerals are within these rocks. The prospector sends out the ping, finds the rock of interest, gets closer to the rock and then switches to the mining UI, and as you hover your cursor over the rock, over time it will tell you what resources are available within that entity. The mission developers are really looking forward to using the scanning and radar system to get more interesting missions out for us. Hopefully they'll come with 3.2, if not 3.3. Anyway, to finish off with, ATV took a look at the Eclipse. It was a little ship shape. This is a single seat stealth bomber, very much like the B-2 bomber. It's about as wide as 2 to 3 Gladius, they say, when it's fully stretched out. It'll be coming in 3.2. It's in the flight prep stage along with the Avenger, the Vandal Blade and the Hurricane. Jared says the 600i is in the final art review, but don't worry, it should still make it into 3.2. Now the Eclipse has a utilitarian cockpit, heavy technical cladding, complicated looking appearance. It feels very claustrophobic, very dark inside. I do really like the way it seems to feel. It is a stealth bomber, so it kind of fills that role. It's got the atmospheric mode where the wings are folded slightly. It's got space mode where it's just a pure triangular shape, very much like the B-2. And then it has landing mode, in which the wings fold up and it looks much more like a bird. The torpedo bay is quite clever. It has a cylindrical delivery system. Basically, it picks one of the missiles from either side and then lowers it via a mechanical arm and then fires forward. It's new to what we already know of, and in the future they say that you will be able to equip varieties of torpedoes. So the right hook could hold a specific type and the left hook could hold a different one, and then you can choose between them depending on what you're wanting to do or what you're wanting to use. It has got minimum armament, although it's got 3 size 9 torpedoes, so it has a very big payload. It only has 2 size 2 or size 3 guns, so nothing really hefty weaponry wise. The torpedoes themselves are almost the full length of the ship. It is meant to be a part of the convoy, so fighters protecting you as you solely try to deliver the payload. Very much welcomes team play, but if you're flying against a capital ship alone, you will likely fail. Now the Eclipse will fit in an Idris, but you have to enter the landing mode. It can be used to deploy the Eclipse anywhere, which sounds like such a lot of gameplay surrounding the Eclipse. I very much love the look of it. I don't own one, but it looks very cool, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of gameplay involved with it. Anyway, that was ATV, guys. Let's move on to RTV. So Reverse the Verse this week took a closer look at scanning. Some good information came out of this, so let's get going, because there was a lot of information as well. The passive radar only sees ships in your short vicinity. They want to allow you to see further. So Tier 0 will allow you to ping out the radar, which is a 360 sort of ping, giving you general information of objects within the larger ping distance. So it picks up electromagnetics, infrared, and RS, which is a new signature called resource signature, so mineable rocks and so forth. They all appear as blobs in the general direction, but with no actual information, and as you fly closer to them, you'll begin to dissolve this information. You can do a focused ping on a specific object, which will give you information as if it was within your passive range radar, so as long as the signal back is strong enough, this only goes for ships and rocks. For Tier 0, eventually they'll have more options there. So we saw a quick little video, I'll only play a bit of it, where it showed him pinging, and then you noticed this sort of discoloured rock. It's not supposed to be discoloured until you go into the mining interface, but that must just be a glitch. You can see all the information on the side regarding the rock's contents in terms of minerals. You can also see the balancing of power to shatter ratio. The whole mining mechanic itself will require a little finesse. It's not just a click and wait sort of loop. You've got to balance the power. I did love how when the rock shattered, the fragments caused the moon dust, or the surface of the moon, to sort of dust up and cloud up as they hit and bounced around. It was a very nice touch, was that. So the first question is there going to be any 2D scanning options? Now they say for Tier 0 there isn't going to be, but they do want to represent these sort of blobs that you pick up and info you've scanned on your 2D radar, so that could be an option. Next question is, will they be able to jam scanners on other ships to mask items of interest from others? And they say that they would love to do that. They're not at that stage at the moment, but it would be cool. They need to find a balance between it. So if you don't want to be scanned, they need something else to help there. They did say there could be a possibility of some sections of pirate ships could be cloaked, or you could put out a fake ID. You could always drop your signals low enough so that you will not be spotted, but then obviously you are vulnerable. Next question, what strengths of signals is needed to be seen? Now, tier 0 they say is going to be very simple. This is what's coming in 3.2. This is the current status. Each single unit will have a fall off after 1 meter. So if you're emitting 1000 EMs, at 1000 meters it drops to 0. The radius of the signal is constantly falling from your position. Your detectable range will be determined by the components and equipment that you have and how they are tuned, and your total distance ping will be determined by your scanner and whether it's upgraded and so forth. Obviously, as time goes on, they'll introduce more and more of these sort of gameplay and balance it out, but your ship will eventually have some UI that you can tell whether you'll be detectable by the players or not, so it won't be just guesswork. Now, someone asked what types of ping are there. Is there going to be variations to it? And the ping can go up to 128 times. So it starts off at 1 and goes up in like 2 times increments. So 1, 2, 4, 6 and so forth. It starts at 360 degrees and it goes into smaller angle increments as well as you get closer. I think they said there's about 8 levels of scanning. We did see like 32 times and 64 times, and each time the angle gets a little narrower, but it goes further. They did point out that it always scans from the front of your ship, so you need to be facing the right direction, unless you have a directional ability like on the Aquila, where you can turn the sort of dish as a separate entity. Next question, will all ships be able to scan? And they said they're not made that decision just yet, but any ship with a ping or a scanner item should be able to. What will make scanning skill-based for improvements? A very good question, that, because they did say they want it to be skill-based. Now, there is an inherent skill when it comes to narrowing the angle and scanning further without having to go through all the stages. So instead of having to go from 1 to 2 to 4 to 32 to 128, if you can go from 1 to straight to 128 and pick the right target, that's obviously a good skill. The blobs, after the initial 360 scan, show up as clumps of objects. So it could just be one, or it could be a clump of multiple objects. So determining what a single object or a group of objects will take skill and recognition over time and practice. Will the scanning capability be determined by the scanner type, size, like components? They say not for tier 0, but for the future, yes. So scanning power, resolution, power usage, the wear and tear, the durability, all of these. There's maybe another idea is that your scanner is not so good, so you can't scan through capital ship hulls or maybe something with shields. So there will be a lot of bouncing around and trying to figure out this sort of gameplay, but it does sound really cool. Can you scan people is another question. And this is again maybe a future plan. You can use the ping to detect life forms or even scanning people's pockets eventually. They have designed this scanner to be able to scan anything. When testing, they said they were scanning random things. They scanned a player and got the items he had. Then when he went on board a ship, they saw the ship items, and then they scanned a little further and it presented the player on board and the player's items again. They're not sure how far they want to take this, but the option is there to develop it. One of the prototypes they said they have got is scanning info and storing it as in a data bank, and then taking that data bank with all that information to someone else. So you could share it with your crew or your party members, and if you can share it, it means you could potentially sell this information about a particular ship for whatever reason, which opens up a lot of cool gameplay. This kind of shows that scanning is a huge commodity and gameplay. Having a single ship in the fleet scanning and then sharing all that information between the fleet is very beneficial, rather than everyone scanning at the same time. The scanning career is an important role, and I'm pretty sure that the SM Borg, my own organisation, will need a team of specialist scanners, so if you are interested, come and join my org, links below. For the future, they said that they want to warn people who are being scanned, so if a pirate starts scanning your cargo bay, or if someone starts scanning your cargo bay, you're gonna need to know this and sort of raise the questions. So next question, can you ping and scan below surfaces of a planet or inside buildings? Now they said that this will be something they want to implement along with similar features. Maybe some materials are harder to penetrate than others, but definitely not tier 0. Will there be delays between pinging? And yes, this is part of the ping item itself. There will be a cooldown time. If you spike up the power, you could probably ping faster, but then it uses more power and your signals get stronger, so you end up broadcasting your position more. Next question is it possible to combine multiple scans from many ships and create a large, full-on scan merged together? Now, they did say that combining things is part of the infrastructure, but how they do it in gameplay standpoint, they're not too sure yet. Next question is, will there be shielded cargo boxes stopping people from scanning them? And they say yes, definitely in the future. They want you to be able to smuggle stuff, but if someone has a high enough scanner, then maybe they'll see through it, but then, you know, who has the best? I'm sure there'll be one best way of smuggling and one best scanner. That will it be able to defeat each other? Who knows? The first goal after 3.2, they said, is trying to tie it into missions, so getting you to scan for a target rather than just having the nav point, or using the scanner to find a mission, so items may be spawning randomly somewhere in space and only found through exploration and scanning, which sounds excellent. Next question is, will scanners use their utility hardpoint? And they're not too sure about this. Internal items like power plants, shield generators and so forth could work. The Aquila, they want to allow it to be part of the turret, but until they have the ability to damage internal items, they're not sure what they're going to decide on there. Because obviously if you can target a scanner on the outside, that will benefit anyone who doesn't want to be scanned, but then if it's on the interior, it's not as easy to get to. So, second to last question, what about altering the type of scan, maybe making it specifically heat, specifically IR or EM? Now, the future tiers will have this ability. For example, you can just switch to resources scanning only. Final question, will different atmospheres and effects on planets and around the spacescape hinder scanning? And they said they do have an ambient system being worked on, so infrared, electromagnetics, etc. around planets, each affecting certain signals. So scanning for heat signatures in like a humid swamp may be difficult, so you may need to switch to a different scanning type. They are still toying with some ideas already, but they're not ready to show it off. Anyway, that was scanning. Some real good information, and I'm getting very excited to get this mechanic in. It sounds like it's going to be quite a pinnacle part of the gameplay loop in Star Citizen, in every area of the game as well. And like I said, having specialist scanners in your crew, I think will be very useful. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, guys. I've waffled on far too long. Let's move on. So, just a quick heads up, there will be no Star Citizen Sunday next week, as I'll be heading to the Download Festival. I shall get it up once I'm back, so likely around Tuesday, Wednesday, the 12th or the 13th. So also this week, the latest Jump Point is available for all RSI subscribers. There is a new Plain Truth post titled Fair Chance Fail, which revisits an old scandal to expose the UEE's failure to protect OSO 2. And finally, in the latest newsletter, it says, and I quote, "We have exciting news this week as development officially moves to focus on Alpha 3.2, with features and improvements making their way into the early stages of PTU implementation, meaning that the Evocati group have started getting some of the features destined for 3.2, so they're testing it now, which is good news, which means a couple of weeks' time, 2 to 3 weeks' time, 3.2 should be released." So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and thank you to our subscribers, plus a massive thank you to our patrons as you make this possible. If you like what we do and want to help us make it better, follow the link in the description to our Patreon page to learn more.